Meet me at the Clock of the Nations in Midtown Plaza, Rochester, New York, where each passing hour is gaily saluted in the carnival spirit that is universal with people everywhere. And I'll acquaint you with There are many ingredients, of course, some sheer delight, like the electronically controlled marionettes of our fabled timepiece. Each passing hour, they dance around the clock to the bright tunes of different countries around the world. Is at our doorstep, so to speak, since the construction of the St. Lawrence Seaway. The Great Lakes have become the fourth seacoast for the United States, and Rochester, its westernmost port on Lake Ontario. The Genesee River, with headwaters in the Appalachian ridges of Pennsylvania, and one of the few rivers in North America flowing north, passes right through the heart of the city. Surrounding Monroe County, and the other counties up the Genesee Valley, constitute a natural economic area, with Rochester as the focal point. Genesee is an Indian word meaning beautiful valley, and still today, no description more aptly fits this area of the world. Beautiful, just simply beautiful valley, as if no adjectives in any language, Iroquois or otherwise, could compete with what nature has wrought here. The river twists tortuously at the Letchworth Gorge, as if fighting its way north, and there are legends at every turn. Every clump of rocks has its myths from Indian times. Some fanciful giant is heralded as creating the Finger Lakes with the dredging fingers of his right hand, an artist's hand surely. And such haunting names the Indians gave them: Skaneateles, Owasco, Cayuga, Seneca, Keuka. To know that the artist giant was actually the glacier doesn't destroy the wonder of them in the least. Canandaigua, Honeoye, Canadice, Hemlock, Conesus. Certainly the work of an artist glacier in any case. Also a bountiful glacier, for the slopes here are rich with the soil it deposited, rich and carefully tended. Here are the Bristol Hills, the famous wine country of western New York, grapes in gorgeous profusion. Apples. You haven't lived, friend, until you've sunk your teeth into the splendor of a western New York apple. The good land attracted the first settlers here little more than 150 years ago. Still today, you will find freestanding homesteads, cherished from generation to generation. The cobblestone construction is characteristic. Cobblestone carted up the valley from Lake Ontario to build to last. Farms in the area are completely electrified now, of course, and as modern in all the conveniences of good living as the methods of farming the surrounding acreage. Signs of the past, historical markers in the towns and villages of the valley give further evidence of the building fervor in the early days of settlement. Early 19th century inns, remodeled to fit today's requirements, still attract the customers. Old landmarks adapted to modern business ventures, and charmingly so. There's a gentle respect, place after place, for the architectural heritage of the valley, a tender reverence for previous periods, the same as that afforded the sheltering shade trees. People here have made peace with the past, the same as they have with the natural setting of this area of the world. Old mansions are now museums. But don't let such historical preservation beguile you. People here can be tough, too. They can be tough with a tree when surgery is necessary. They can be tough with a tree. They can be tough with a house. They can be tough with a city when surgery is necessary. Tough, yet tender at the same time, in the manner of skilled professionals. Have you ever heard of Genesee fever? Historically, it was probably some kind of rash encountered by Colonel Nathaniel Rochester when he decided to utilize the water power of the Genesee Falls and build a settlement here. Today, Genesee fever best describes the rash of activity that has continued in this area of the world from the frontier forward. There has never been any nonsense about the purpose of the city or the 9 counties of the Rochester economic area. Quite simply, it is considered a place to make a profit as pleasantly as possible. The community is fully aware of the financial facts of life and the methods of making an economic area prosperous. Oh, I had a mule. Her name was Sal, 20 years on the Erie Canal. That much-chanted and tall-tailed waterway was pronounced Erie back in the 1820s, when it was the main trade and travel artery in America. Today, it provides recreational facilities, fishing and boating, as well as many a pleasant picnic area for family outings. The present barge canal carries cargoes of grain and petroleum, slow freight, and is still serving in America's network of inland waterways. Rochester was one of the first boom towns in America. What the Erie started, the railroads continued. Faster freight and passenger service. Bonanza business right in the heart of Rochester. What the railroads continued, the automobile climaxed. Today, a portion of the old Erie forms a sentimental segment in the complex of arterial highways and expressways that link the heart of the city to the New York State segment of the Transcontinental Thruway. Tough yet gentle surgery for the old Erie. The important thing, of course, is that the heart of the city has a booming beat, stronger than ever before. Times change, and you either change your city to fit them, or they'll change your city, often unpleasantly, more often unprofitably. Rochester has made its peace with the automobile. Is it practical to do otherwise? Does it make any civic sense whatsoever to cuss the tyranny of wheels and the insolent chariots, instead of getting together to plan a workable solution for traffic congestion? 20th century America is geared to the automobile, and thus is Rochester geared. Traffic flows here, flows faster all the time, because of community planning for the years ahead. Coincidentally, there is one of the best traffic safety records here of any city in the country. Believe me, friend, if you're driving more these days and enjoying it less, come to Rochester. Here, driving is the positive pleasure it ought to be everywhere. What's more, there's plenty of convenient parking space, thanks to more community planning for the years ahead, and the building of self-liquidating municipal parking units. Rochester Monroe County Airport is only 10 minutes from downtown. When these pictures were taken, the runways were being extended to accommodate jet flights. Change, not only to keep abreast of the times, but to keep ahead of the times, using every possible facility for moving people and products. Yes, Rochester is on the move, with every means of travel and transportation. Genesee fever in the airborne age. Flying out of Rochester, you get a pleasant view of the Barge Canal where it crosses the Genesee. Did you ever see a city so green and growing? Green and growing right into the downtown area. That is the inner loop, channeling traffic to the central core of the city. That is the outer loop, circling the city, channeling traffic to the surrounding suburbs and industrial parks. Starting practically from scratch with the advent of the St. Lawrence Seaway, Rochester has made significant strides in attracting commercial cargo. What's being loaded or unloaded today? Clean cargo, certainly. Cargo compatible with the community. Mobile cranes move goods from ship to shore. Forklift trucks transfer merchandise from the warehouse or the dockside storage space, from freighter to fast truck. Rochester is the economy port of the Great Lakes, where the seaway meets the thruway. It is within a 350-mile radius of the greatest consumer and industrial goods market in the world. An arc including Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Detroit. Yes, indeed, old Colonel Nathaniel Rochester certainly picked an ideal location for a city. He really started something. Industries have developed here that have made the name Rochester synonymous with quality and precision manufacturing. A veritable who's who in American business. Industrial pioneers such as George Eastman, Edward Bausch, and Henry Long founded local concerns whose diversified products are now bought and sold everywhere. A tradition of fine craftsmanship developed here, attracting quality industries and quality people alike. Skilled industries, skilled people. Clean industries, clean people. Stable industries, stable people. Diversified products, not only those in present production, but those in the dream stage, those still swirling around in some inventive mind, demand an educated workforce, adaptable, swift to understand change and technological improvement. Change is necessary to keep competitive in industries as well as cities. If you don't change, change will change you. Technological lag is tantamount to slow death. Rochester recognized this fact years ago and developed a program of training and retraining the workforce. And again, not only to keep the workforce abreast of the times, but to keep it ahead of the times. There is a positive passion in people here for going to school, an incredibly contagious fervor, almost furor, to learn more than they know about everything possible. Genesee fever again. There is a profusion of educational facilities, graduate as well as undergraduate, developing diversified talents necessary to attract and hold diversified industries. Many of these institutions are generously endowed from the profits of local enterprise. Rochester's colleges attract people from all over the country, and they generally stay here. Industries, too. When you come right down to it, what brings a prospective industry to a prospective location? More than anything else, it is an enlightened workforce. In this respect, Rochester is second to none, for clean industries, that is, for industries requiring a high percentage of professional, technical, skilled, and semi-skilled personnel. Naturally, a prospective industry will have other requirements. Site zoned for industry? Rochester has them. Industrial parks circling the city, and right in the downtown area. Urban renewal and redevelopment at its best. Replacing the old with the new, within view of the heart of the city. Coordinating coordinated fire protection throughout Rochester and Monroe County is rated the third best in the United States. There is an abundance of water, controlled abundance, from the upland lakes and Lake Ontario. A safe daily yield of 200 million gallons, with the Great Lakes as unlimited reservoir for any future demands. Utilities? Well, Rochester Gas and Electric Company, for one, is renowned for the quality of its services. In addition to gas and electricity, it supplies steam to the downtown area and to many other commercial and industrial customers. Active since 1952 with other companies engaged in nuclear research, RG&E will be ready with the know-how and the resources when economical atomic power can be applied to industrial and consumer advantage throughout the area. Industries, of course, are citizens of the community, the same as individuals. And here, both are expected to be good citizens, respecting the natural beauty of the Genesee setting, and what's more, enhancing it. Is there any earthly reason for permanent scarring of the landscape? Any conceivable reason for ugly smoke belching into the sky? In Rochester, parks are parks, industrial or otherwise. There's a tradition of greenery, sunlight, fresh air, and the sheer joy of open space. Flowers. The flowers, friend, are phenomenal in Rochester. And I'm not just talking about the world's celebrated Lilac Festival each spring. I'm talking about the community compulsion to plant wherever there's a square foot of sod that can stand brightening. Truly, the entire population seems born with or converted to the green thumb. Public gardens galore, and private gardens galore, hillside patches, lyrical and lovely. Flowers, flowers, flowers. People here put down roots too, so it is no surprising statistic that 70% of the occupied dwelling units in the Rochester area are owner-occupied. A family city is Rochester. Doing things together is the order of the day. All in all, there are upwards of 300,000 people in the city proper. Upwards of 300,000 people in Monroe County. Upwards of 350,000 people in the other 8 counties of the Rochester economic area. Nearly 1 million population in nearly 5,000 square miles of land allows plenty of space to grow and grow healthily. For people living elsewhere, it is surprising, perhaps, that Rochester has what Leopold Stokowski called one of the finest orchestras in the world. It is not the least bit surprising, of course, to the people living here. They like good music, and they support good music in the same manner and the same spirit that they achieve other community advantages. They get together a committee of conscientious citizens and raise the funds by popular subscription. Industries, as well as individuals, get behind the program and push, with the result that the cash, as well as the checks, comes rolling into the good cause. The same persuasive pattern exists, whatever the community project. It may be the building fund for a new church, or the building fund for a new school. Recently, the entire community joined in the drive for a new parochial school. Protestants, Catholics, Jews alike felt that school was a community cause. People here live and work in splendid harmony and respect. Small wonder Rochester received the World Brotherhood Award. Small wonder, too, the term community chest was coined in Rochester and that each year it exceeds its goal. Throughout the world, of course, Rochester is famed as a medical center. Hospitals, research laboratories, most of them supported by private funds, have pioneered many of the medical miracles of our time. Health insurance for an already healthy community, and wonderfully reassuring to the senior citizens. Most of them stay here in their declining years. They love it here. They find plenty of satisfying activity to occupy their retirement, so it doesn't make much sense to them traipsing off someplace else. If necessary, of course, Rochester looks out for them. And here is a surprising statistic, at least in terms of other cities. In Rochester, only 50% of the cost of welfare is derived from tax money. The remaining 50% comes from voluntary contributions and other private funds. Conscientious citizens naturally produce conscientious government. The words of Jonathan Child, first mayor of Rochester, still echo sensibly in local ears. In the intercourse of social life, and on all occasions involving the interests of our young city, let us forget our politics and our party and seek only the public good. Such philosophy has produced enlightened government, working with enlightened commerce. In other words, public funds are used to spark and to supplement private enterprise. Such action has revitalized the heart of the city, more specifically, downtown Rochester. As in most American cities, the tendency here in recent years was a withdrawal from the central core to the surrounding suburbs. People first, then business, headed for the open spaces. Rochester didn't fight the suburbs or the shopping centers rising to meet suburban needs. It simply capitalized on the things people like about shopping centers. Wide varieties of merchandise, the fun of meeting people, and above all, in this day and age, a place to park. Having made its peace with the automobile, Rochester was in a position to bring the suburbs downtown to the central core of the city. It can pack the Eastman Theater for a Broadway roadshow or musical festival. It can pack the War Memorial Auditorium for a hockey game or an international trade convention. Rochester Monroe County Civic Center pulls together as many functions of city, county, state, and national government as possible into one location, with easy access, of course, and plenty of parking space. Having made its peace with the past, Rochester can rip out and rearrange streets and sections of that central core to its heart's content. Here's another section that will feel the impact of the bulldozer. Surgery, tough, yet tender. For Front Street in the future will be known as Genesee Crossroads, a complex of hotels and apartments, shops and offices, parks and promenades. Likewise, in the future, is the towering world headquarters for Xerox. Sidewalk engineers have a field day in downtown Rochester. That central core changes fast and furious, but not fast enough or furious enough for some of them. That Genesee fever still. It was at an all-time high during the construction of Midtown Plaza, 10 acres of renewal. And that hole in the ground seemed to stay there forever. Actually, that hole was the makings of a 3-level, 2,000-car underground municipal parking garage. The city solved the traffic problem, and from there on, private enterprise took over. Up, the girders went. The framework for a new 18-story office building and hotel. The framework for a new retail complex centered about a new roofed, air-conditioned marketplace. the size of a football field. Total time from the signing of the contracts to opening day celebration, 38 months. Total cost, $25 million of private investment. A beautiful dream, yes. A magnificent merchandising idea. But $25 million? Why would investors put up that kind of money for something like this in a city this size? Bankers here are clear-eyed and practical, the same as bankers elsewhere, possibly more so. Why, oh why would financial genius go for sidewalk restaurants, benches, fountains, trees, flowers? They know the people of Rochester. That's why. Quality people in quality jobs, earning quality incomes, buy quality merchandise. The stability of the workforce in Rochester makes for stability of investment in Rochester. Midtown Plaza is simply the most dramatic ingredient of the Rochester recipe for good living. There are thousands more, maybe not so fancy, but certainly just as important as the song and dance of our fabled timepiece. In Rochester, even these marionettes have Genesee fever. They perform every hour on the half hour, too, in the carnival spirit that is the timeless magic of the marketplace since cities began. A delight to the children, an intriguing interlude to shoppers and visitors from all over the world.
In the 1970s and 80s, Rod Hull enjoyed success as one of Britain's best-known and loved entertainers, along with a temperamental and much-feared sidekick.
What kind of brain would think of this creature? I mean, why did you pick an emu?
Because I couldn't get my hand up a budgie.
Rodney Stephen Hull was born in 1935 on the Isle of Sheppey in Kent. Growing up in wartime Britain, Rod developed a love of entertaining, amusing his friends and family from an early age.
During the war, we were in the same bedroom, and I would get scared fairly easily. But he had a candlestick, and he would sit at the end of the bed and do shadow pictures on the wall for me until I fell asleep telling me stories.
Despite dreams of stardom, on leaving school, Rod trained as an electrician. And in 1958, he married his childhood sweetheart, Sandra.
He was totally and utterly besotted with her. He thought she was the most gorgeous thing he'd ever seen in his life. If Rod fell for somebody, he really fell.
But Rod still longed for a career in comedy. His break would come care of his sister Joan, who had recently emigrated to Australia.
I wrote to him and I said, look, they're just starting television. I said, for God's sake, if you want to be in something, get here now.
Rod found work as a studio technician for Australia's Channel 9. He and Sandra moved to Sydney's northern beaches. Family life was complete with the birth of their 2 daughters.
Dad was always there to play with us more than anything. As soon as you got in the car, you sang. You sang as you left home, and you sang when you arrived back.
As Rod's young family grew, his career began to flourish.
I think he went in to Channel 9 originally because he was an electrician. He went in as a lighting man, but then, you know, at the same time he was putting his scripts around and meeting people and everything.
And next thing, Rod had his own show out here called Caper Cops.
Constable Plot is all set to fly to Fiji for a holiday. But Slippery Sam knows a trick or two.
And in 1969, he caught the eye of British television star Warren Mitchell, who cast him as the sidekick in his Australian comedy series.
Watch. In the box.
Right.
Rod had a devilish thing in him, which he loved playing Japes, jokes and wheezes, and that was the fun of being on tour with the man. He loved being a naughty boy.
And in 1970, Rod discovered the perfect outlet for this naughtiness.
He's got a beak and feathers and things, but the poor old fella ain't got no wings.
Buried in a dusty props cupboard in Sydney's Channel 9 studio.
He can't fly, but I'm telling you, we can run the paths of a kangaroo.
But as one perfect partnership came together, another was falling apart. Rod and Sandra's marriage floundered when he met Cher Hilton, a young Australian artist.
I met Rod in Sydney. I thought, what a strange character. He was sort of long and lanky, and he did make everyone laugh, though.
In 1970, in order to further his career, Rod persuaded the whole family to return to England. Cher soon followed.
It was just suddenly sort of presented to us, that's it, we're all moving back to England. Obviously he stopped being husband, but he was still dad. That role to him was still important.
Signed on the spot, Rod and Emu were soon unleashed on an unsuspecting British public.
Queen Mother is greeted by Bernard Delfont, president of the fund.
He stood on the side of that stage and he was saying to himself, what makes you think you can get out there and perform? He'd torture himself.
What he's going to do now is going to leap through this hoop, which I've got down here.
Then he'd go out there and it was amazing. He put the house down.
Waiting to go on stage was an old friend.
I could hear from my dressing room the roar of the laughter.
You! I'm talking to you!
It wasn't a laugh, it was a scream. You know that wonderful scream you can hear sometimes?
He likes me.
He likes you.
Having triumphed on stage, Emu performed an anarchic encore in the Royal Receiving Line.
Because you have to have a certain amount of decorum, don't you? And I didn't quite know what to do, so I thought I'd bow very low. And as I bowed, Emu's head came face to face with her bouquet. And again, it was just a reaction. He went choom, like that. And she was left holding a bunch of stalks.
I think that was the thing that was in the paper the next day. After those, then he was just in demand.
And so began a reign of TV terror that would delight audiences for over 20 years.
I'm in a Jeep. Sleep!
When I would dress Rod, Emu would still be alive. It would be moving and pecking at my ear or tugging at my clothes. He really had a knack of splitting his brain in two so that he was still having a sensible conversation. And this thing was alive.
You.
It frightened the living daylights out of you. And if it took a dislike to you, it would cross its beak like that.
There, you have a go.
Oh, no! And then it would attack. You feared for your life.
In 1976, Rod and Emu became a regular, if chaotic, part of children's television.
Yeah, I'm talking. That's my spot!
Yes! But Rod and Emu's most chaotic and mischievous moment was yet to come.
You dirty bird. Now listen.
By the mid-1970s, no TV entertainment show was complete without the anarchic Emu dragging Rod in its destructive wake.
He didn't like to conform at all. He hated the norm. That just wasn't him.
He just didn't believe in certain rules. I remember driving with him once and I said, Rod, I think there's a policeman behind us. And he said, I hope he doesn't ask for my licence. I haven't got one.
Rod's unruliness reached its peak in 1976 with a chat show appearance that became one of the iconic moments in television.
I think that when we booked Rod Hull, we knew what we were going to get. I didn't quite know what it was, the degree, otherwise I wouldn't have booked him with hindsight.
You're all right, aren't you?
Why is it so aggressive?
It's not aggressive.
Not much.
Not all the time.
I was going to get done over. We allowed for that. We put him on first, which meant we got rid of him. We could rearrange the set and the debris. I really lost my temper with him. I mean, but the absurdity is, forever after that, it became the thing I was remembered for most of all. Which tells you something about the job.
Everybody remembers that sequence.
With career success came personal happiness. In 1979, Rod married his second wife, Cher, and along with her daughter, set up home in Kent.
He was at his happiest and most calm, most relaxed when he was with the family.
Rod and Cher went on to have 3 children together.
Parenting was certainly an interesting thing with him. He did the classic thing of, you know, you're on the bike and you're doing the pedalling, and he's holding behind you and then just lets you go. And then when you turn round and you realise that he's gone, and you think, oh, brilliant, but he'd do it in a small enclosed area, so you just plough into the wall and hadn't told you to stop, brake, steer, or anything of that sort. So I'd say they were probably the earlier memories.
I'm very relieved.
So am I.
Not to see Emu with you. Does it feel a little bit odd, sort of?
No, I feel quite normal without him.
By 1987, Emu had made Rod a millionaire, enabling him to buy the property that had inspired Charles Dickens to write Great Expectations, Restoration House in Rochester, Kent.
It was basically derelict when it was bought, and one of Dad's other great passions was preserving the past.
As we're walking around going, oh no, this is going to be too much. We can't take this one on. But of course, he just said, got to have it.
But restoring the house to its former glory proved an expensive job.
The comedian Rod Hull has put his home Restoration House in Rochester up for sale.
He put it on the market, reduced the price down. No takers, until there was no time left. The bank were wanting the money, so they took it.
Rod Hull was declared bankrupt in September 1994. Agreeing that Cher should take the children to her native Australia to protect them, he faced the music alone.
Fatalistically, he said, OK, it's gone, so I'm no worse off than I was when I first came back to this country. I had nothing then, and I can do it all again, and he started off again. But I think it gave him a nasty old shock. Well, I know it did.
Rod moved into a small, ramshackle cottage in the village of Icklesham in Sussex.
I just thought it was a shed in a field when I first saw it. But to Dad, it was fantastic.
In 1997, he was joined by his son Oliver, back in England to go to college.
And we're going to have some coffee instead.
Mum phoned me up once and accused me of living an eccentric retiree's life. And I said, it's brilliant. It's absolutely so much fun.
Now my work is done.
I'm trying to get the breakfast.
Oh, you look fabulous, Dad.
To me, he became Dad again. And he could just pick up a phone and say, hey, what are you doing today? And then you could arrange to get together 2 hours later instead of 2 months later.
Look for their show prize leaks.
Every now and then he would go and do a TV show, an interview or something of that sort, but there was certainly that thing of it's taking me out of where I want to be.
So I like this, I feel really good now.
Towards the end, we became really good friends, really properly good friends that just enjoyed each other's company. And I don't think that there's too much more you can ask from a father and son than that.
Tributes were paid today to the TV comic Rod Hull, who died in a bizarre accident at his home in Sussex.
Hull, loved and feared for the antics of his puppet Emu, was trying to adjust his TV aerial when he fell off the roof.
It was without question the darkest and the bleakest night of my life. The reception had gone, and we had a chat about who was going to go up there, and I think that will remain my biggest regret in life, I think, was the fact that we were trying to decide who was going to go up there. And it wasn't really even a decision, it was just, he just said, I'll go. And a mild sort of thud, and then a heavier thud. And I remember thinking, what was that? And I think that when I finally saw him there, yeah, I knew it wasn't good.
Last time I saw him, when I went over there for the funeral, to the eulogy, he looked too dapper though, because that brushed his hair and all that lot, and that wasn't Rod. So my darling wife died. She ruffled all his hair up, and she said, "Yeah, that looks better, doesn't it, Rod?" You know?
When I mention every now and then about who my dad was, one of my proudest things is actually just to hear about the sort of memories that they had from watching my dad on TV, and the kind of happiness and joy that he brought to their lives.
One of the best compliments you can give to somebody is to say that if I ever become like him, I'll be very happy, and I'll know that I've succeeded, because he is in every way somebody that I would want to be. So